I can't draw a skull for crap. Let's fix that. A couple weeks back, I was working on improving my faces, and something I wanted to do as part of that was to study the skull. The thing is, skulls are scary. They're hard to get right, but they're also pretty important to understand if you want to get good at drawing any kind of faces. So I tried to find a way to make studying them a bit more fun for me, and here we are. If you've ever felt resistant towards studying something a little bit intimidating, or maybe even just straight up boring, then this one's for you. I wanted to start with something relatively comfortable and easy, so instead of jumping head first into anatomically correct skulls, I began by copying ones drawn by other artists. I made a Pinterest board with a bunch of references, all in different angles, different styles, perspectives, and gave myself a 10-minute timer for each one. My goal here wasn't accuracy or perfection, it was just to get my hand moving and build up my momentum. Now, you might be wondering, did you think about the artist's thought process whilst copying these? And the answer is simple. No, I did not, because I didn't really think about anything. Whilst it's definitely valuable to understand why an artist chooses to do something or why they make specific decisions in their work, it's not something that I find necessary. Again, the main goal here was having fun, and anything I learned along the way was just a nice bonus. Also, to me personally, I do find it more helpful to find ways of recreating someone's work in my own way, rather than just like straight up copying them and like becoming a printer of their exact process and style. Once I had filled my page with 10 of these skulls, I felt warmed up, less anxious, and ready to dive into something a little bit more challenging. With the second exercise, I built on the previous one, doing a bunch of studies of a skull I'd found on Sketchfab. I didn't pick a real skull because that seemed intimidating, whereas this one was simple, clean, and would just let me focus on the important things. To try to ease in, I did follow a tutorial I'd saved on Pinterest, but it didn't really help at all, so I ditched that pretty quickly and just tried to figure things out on my own. And my first attempt was a total fail. The proportions were off, the nose was wrong, eyes too big and way too close together. It was a mess. I started feeling my initial resistance creeping back in. Maybe I wasn't ready, maybe I should give up and do something else. Instead of letting myself get overwhelmed by all of those thoughts, I took a quick break, and when I came back, I decided that even if all I did for the rest of the session was to just trace these skulls, then at least I would be doing something, and that would still be progress. So I did do just that. I took that first reference and traced over it, mapping out all the different planes and shapes that I saw. Then right next to it, I redrew it. Just doing that helped a lot, because for the next photo, I felt like I didn't need to trace as much. I still did a quick run over of the main lines where the eye sockets were, the curve of the jaw, the nose hole, and again redrew it besides the trace. By the third skull, I barely traced anything. I just picked out the force lines and key proportions, drew a simplified version, and then built the full skull sketch over that. I made sure to practice a lot of different perspectives, including a few less common ones. I've put together a worksheet with all of them. It's in the description, along with links to everything else I've mentioned, just in case you'd like to check that out and practice drawing the same skulls that I did. With the last study I did, I added a bit of shading to help me practice my values and help it look more 3D. Overall, this exercise really did help me see this skull as a solid 3-dimensional shape in space rather than just like a flat 2D diagram, like symbolic thing. Finally, I wanted to give myself a little test. Could I actually apply what I'd learnt to drawing a proper face? I took 3 of the skull studies I'd done, a front view, 3/4 view, and a side view, and drew some heads over them. And my takeaway from that was that, yes, knowing the structure of the skull, knowing the proportions, the planes, the general layout, all of that is most definitely helpful when constructing a head, because it gives you something solid to build on instead of just guessing where things go. Having said that, that is just the start. Out of these 3 heads, only the side profile looked decent. The other 2 were kinda scary, to be honest, and just made it clear that I now needed to move beyond bone structures and learn how muscles like attach to the face, how skin wraps around it, how expressions change the like key points. So I have laid down the foundations, but there is still like a lot more that I need to build on top of that, and I look forward to getting there. But yeah, this was my little journey into studying the skull and trying to make it a bit less daunting. I think I've put in some good mileage and I am happy with my results. If you're in a similar spot to me, I would recommend starting with something fun or easy. You don't really need to start with the stuff that's difficult. You can build up to that. Don't try to make things harder than they have to be, because, you know, it's unnecessary. You'll get there with time. Like, start out with stuff that's simple and just like slowly build up to the stuff that's harder. You can try and test yourself from time to time, but if something feels overwhelming or intimidating, anything like that, obviously if you have a test next week, that's not really the case. But, you know, with art, I feel like most of us have our own timeline for these things, so we don't really have to be in any kind of real rush. Also, there's nothing wrong with tracing or copying, as long as you're doing it to practice and not trying to pass the copy or trace off as like your own work, pretending that you were the original artist. I really don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you want to see where I went next with my head studies, definitely do check out last week's video. I'm currently only a few weeks into my 5-month roadmap to get good at art, and there'll be plenty of similar videos coming out every single week. So if you enjoyed this one, hopefully you'll enjoy the rest too. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, bye!